Hello and welcome to Too Many Movies, the podcast where we discuss DVDs, Blu-rays, and even the occasional VHS tape. I'm your host, Tal, and today I got another special guest with me. Perry, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Perry, also known as Agent P3. If you don't know me, I have a YouTube channel where I talk about video games. Well, not video. I shouldn't start with video games because I only did one, but I talk about movies and TV shows primarily, and I'll make more video game videos in the future. But most recently, I made a boys video that really popped off, and you probably know me from that if you didn't know who I was already. And yeah, thanks Hal for letting me on. I think I begged you to let me join this because I'm a really huge fan of this podcast. This is like my favorite podcast.
Oh, your favorite podcast?
Yeah, I mean that was a lie, but just kidding. But to be honest,
Thanks for saying it. I know I told you to say that before we started recording.
Right, but no, this is a true story. I try to watch your podcast like genuinely, and I do want to watch it, but like most of the movies you have, I haven't seen, so I don't want to spoil it for myself. I did watch the part of the video you did with I think one of James' other editors, where y'all talk about Nope.
Yeah, that was with Puff. We talked about Nope and Mirror Mask. Yeah.
I haven't seen Mirror Mask, but I saw Nope, and I watched up to when you stopped talking about Nope. But like that was a good video. So I do like your videos. If that's
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, no problem.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah. I appreciate hearing that people like the show, which is good. I mean, I like doing the show. I like having people on, so that's good.
Yeah, it's good to talk to people about movies and stuff. That was why I asked if I could join.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, speaking of movies to talk about, let's talk about a movie.
Great.
So I'll let you take this one. We watched American Psycho. So talk about that.
Yeah. So I think this is I think you said this is your first time watching American Psycho.
No, this is like my third time.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Oh, this is my first time watching American Psycho, and I know that's probably. I lose some YouTube review points for not seeing this because this is a very iconic movie. But yeah, like I've heard about American Psycho. I've seen all the memes. Like, there's a lot of memes of American Psycho, but I've never actually seen it. This is my first time, and I was actually very fascinated by it. For starters, I want to say the Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie is very low. It's like at 60%.
Is it really 60?
Yeah, I can. Hey, let me check.
Oh
real quick.
My god.
Yeah.
That fucking website.
Yeah,
dude. I could rant about that website for hours.
Yeah, but like I think it's from like when it first came out. I don't think it was as well received as it is now, because I think it had like a cult following. Let me hang on, American Psycho. Yeah, it's like 68%, which I don't think it's deserves that. I in my opinion, I think it maybe should be like 70, high 70, low 80. But yeah, no, like this is a so sorry, I'm going all over the place.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. But I had like no expectations. I knew this was a good movie, but the Rotten Tomatoes score definitely kind of like made me like pause. Like, is this actually as good as everyone says it is? And yeah, it was really good. I think I went to the movie thinking American Psycho is obviously it's supposed to be a like a parody or an allegory for like the American way. Like maybe this guy is he presents himself as this all American guy who speaks all these American beliefs, but on the inside he kills people and stuff like that, which is apparent from like the poster I'm looking at where he has blood all over his face, which is true. Like in the movie itself, he makes all these speeches and statements about calling people out for having like anti-Semitic marks or racist remarks on people, and then he says and acts very racist and not anti-Semitic, but he acts racist towards certain people in the movie whenever it suits him, which is, I guess, I don't want to get too political, but that is kind of America somewhat in a nutshell. But the movie actually is a little bit deeper than that, slightly, which I didn't really expect. Because my biggest takeaway from this movie, and this may have been something that someone already realized, and I might look like a dummy for mentioning that this is my biggest takeaway, but I think this is like the effects of someone who achieved the American dream and like how it affects you mentally. Because like this guy, we don't. I think his name is Patrick Bateman, who's played
Patrick Bateman,
who's played beautifully by Kristen Bell, love his performance. And we don't learn about much of his past, but we learn enough for my theory to, I guess, make some sort of sense. The American dream is, you work hard and you can be anything you want to be. Like, that's the American dream. Like, you can start off however you want to, or have whatever upbringing, whether it's poor or rich. And if you work hard enough and you network with the right people or whatever, then you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. So Patrick Bateman essentially is the embodiment of that. He went to a very accredited college. He went to Harvard, and now he has a job as a bank seller. I think that's hang on. Is that right?
Yeah, it's some like Wall Street job.
Yeah, Wall Street, something like that. Yeah. Which he basically gets paid to do nothing. Like that's his job. That is literally like what everyone wants to do. Like everyone wants to everyone wants money, but they don't want to work for it. I think that's. I mean, there's some people that might want to work, but like they want to work for a job or have a job where it doesn't feel like work. Or like you come in every day doing something that you love and you get paid for it. And that's basically what, or in Patrick's case, he gets paid to do nothing, which is equivalent to that dream. But the thing is, the twist on that is he is surrounded by people he doesn't like. He's surrounded by all these idiots essentially.
He's surrounded by people essentially that he's trying to act like.
Yeah.
Like he's essentially trying to fit in. Like there's actually a specific part in the movie where his girlfriend or his fiance is just like, why do you hang out with these people? And he's like, because I'm trying to fit in.
Right.
Like he genuinely just says it out loud like that.
Right. And he also gets jealous very easily. He reminded me, funny enough, he reminds me a lot of Homelander, which I wouldn't be surprised if the writers for The Boys took a lot of notes from this movie, which I mean that's both of them have like textbooks case psychopathy or whatever. I'm not a therapist, so don't don't quote me on that. But like they both have traits of sociopathy or psychopath, all that stuff. All those pseudoscience stuff, and I forgot what I was going to say. Wait a minute. Like they both get super jealous easily because they feel like they're above these people and all that stuff. And he essentially feels like he's trapped, kind of like Homelander. They feel like they're trapped by what makes them successful. Where Homelander is trapped by his fame and like his love for or his love of wanting to be loved. Patrick Bateman is kind of trapped by societal norms and his money and his wealth. Like he feels like he has to fit in. He feels like he has to have this fiance. Feels like he has to have this job, but he doesn't really like any of that. So he acts out by killing these people, and taking out all of his pent up rage on these people. And the ending of the movie, and I think we're doing spoilers, so I think it's okay for me to say the ending of the movie. When he
spoil the hell out of it, man. Yeah.
Thanks. The movie ends with him trying to like confess his sins, and like he thinks this is his out, but then I don't remember if this was implied or actually confirmed, but he doesn't get in trouble. He doesn't pay for his actions because I guess people covered up for him. Is that what happened? I think that's what happened.
So that's the interesting part. So I mean, it's awesome that you're saying all these things. So I kind of want to give my 2 cents in.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's. I remember a friend of mine actually did post in my Discord server like that there's 3 different ways of looking at the movie as a whole, like the theming of it, the fact that at the end, yes, Patrick essentially just does get away with everything after like committing all these heinous acts. Like nothing comes of him doing all these terrible murders and stuff like that. And there's like 3 ways of looking at it. So there's one, society just doesn't care. Like he is in this position of power. He's this rich guy. He just can do whatever he wants because the people around him, whether or not society as a whole cares, like the people that he mostly interacts with, and that is these yuppies in New York and Wall Street, they just don't care because he's just so far gone and into this culture that like it doesn't matter.
Right.
Then there's like the second theory saying that there is actively people, like forces unseen that are kind of covering it up. So because he holds such a position of power, like it actively is trying to make it seem like he never actually did commit these murders when he totally did.
Right.
Theory number 3, which is the one I subscribe to the most, is that it's all in his head. Like, I think because the movie and the climax, for those who have seen it and you remember, like,
yeah,
it gets kind of goofy how like he's just running around shooting people on the street. Like he shoots those cop cars and they just explode.
Yeah, I was like, what is happening? Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. No, but it's a really interesting scene, and I feel like it's a good indicator that I don't think the movie's supposed to be 100% legit. I think a lot of it is in his head, where that kind of like goes into his psychopathic nature. Like he's imagining that he's like killing all these people and he's committing these horrible acts and he's doing these horrible things, because no matter what, even though he has these thoughts, even though he commits these horrible things, nothing's going to come of it. Right. And I feel like that's that's the thing. Like that's just 3 theories that I just listed off, and all of them hold some sort of water. Right. I think the second one less so, because it's never really shown that there are forces unseen working for his advantage.
Right.
It's like, if that's the case, that's not really presented as well. And yes, the movie is intentionally vague, but I feel like that means theories like the first and the third one, where it's like, oh, he did commit all these murders but nobody cares, or he didn't commit any of these murders and nobody cares, like it all works out anyway because the movie is so vague. And I feel like that's where its strengths are at.
Yeah, and I do like, this movie is a satire, which I...
Yes, and it's very satirical,
and
absolutely. I think that plays into like the vagueness of it all.
Yeah, and I do like that it does really hold your hand, and like you can look at this and you can like come up with all of these interpretations, like you just did, like or like the person in your Discord server did, which I didn't know you had. You need to add me to that. But
sure,
yeah. But as you might have posted it in another Discord, that server that shall not be named, because I don't know if Chris wants it to be out. But anyway, sorry. So I have mixed feelings about the last theory you said about it all being a dream. Like I don't really love dream theories too much, because like basically you're watching this whole entire movie or this whole entire show or episode, whatever, and it all turns out to be, not real. And basically it's kind of a waste of time, because like, why did I waste my time and invest in the story when none of it actually happened, none of it has any consequences and anything like that. And like it is still interesting, because like there are ways you can make it interesting. Like I think this movie does make it interesting, and so does Joker, the 2019 movie. I'm sure you've seen that, right?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. Where it plays into the character, because like the Joker character, his whole character embodies that movie and how unpredictable and how unreliable it is, because like that plays into his mentality and his psychology and all that stuff. So does American Psycho with Patrick Bateman. But like, I guess my issue with it is So the last scene where he like was blowing up like cop cars, killing people left and right without any consequences, I didn't really like that, and it kind of because it kind of goes back on the thing I said earlier, where the movie kind of lets you figure things out on your own, and that scene where it's so over top and silly and completely clashes with the tone of like the what we already saw. I feel like that sequence is telling you, oh, this is a dream, none of this is happening. And it's not really letting you kind of like figure it out, if that makes sense. And that's probably why this movie is ranked a little bit lower than it should be. Is because people probably saw that and was like, why are we like in a shooter Call of Duty video game right now? Like this was like this was like a psychological thriller like literally 2 seconds ago, and now he's like blowing up cars and blowing up people and everything's fine, everything's hunky dory. Like
what is this, Fortnite?
Exactly. Well, Fortnite wasn't around back then, but sure, yeah, I'm sure people like the kids today, whoever watches now, probably would think that too. But like I think the campiness of that scene definitely brings this movie down for me. But it is definitely a better satire than most movies. A movie that comes to mind, and I'm sure you probably have opinions on this, is Don't Look Up. which is probably it's probably like the best example of how to not do satire, or at least how to do it badly. Now, Don't Look Up is decent satire, but it's not a good movie because it plays into the satire aspect of it too much, and it holds the audience's hand so much. Like the whole entire movie is telling you, oh, humans are dumb. You see how like we make arguments about how this obvious thing that's gonna kill these people. How people are it might not be real. Isn't that like, this political thing that you saw like the other day? Like, oh, we're so stupid and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, like, and all the characters are assholes. And then it's not a good movie. But in this movie, their characters are the other characters besides Patrick are very flat and like one note. But that's the point, because the movie is all from his perspective, and of course he's gonna think because he doesn't like anyone, and they're all gonna be seen as these one note like a-holes and like. Just annoying people, because that's like that kind of drives his motivation in the movie to do what he's doing. So that's a good use of satire, because you're exaggerating something to prove a point, but it pushes the narrative and pushes the character. So I think it was good satire up to that point where it became like a dream sequence, like a Call of Duty type of game. But how do you feel about that? Do you agree? Or
I do agree for the most part. Like, I do agree with the whole like, oh, it was all a dream. Like, it does feel like a cop out. I will say for this movie, the reason I don't mind it is because I feel like the whole movie is very vague. And yeah, there is that bit at the end where it's like getting a little more obvious, where he is like doing all these weird campy stuff, where he is just shooting people randomly. Now, with it being like all in his head, I don't think, and I do agree, like maybe in any other movie that would be kind of a cop out, but I feel like it works here because at the very end, when he's just like, I just confessed this whole thing to my lawyer essentially and nothing came of it. He specifically says this whole confession has meant nothing. And maybe this is just me, but I like to interpret it as, okay, everything up until then was all like in his head, but what's to say that because he just admitted all these terrible atrocities and nothing came of it, does that mean then he's going to actually commit terrible atrocities? Like, what's to happen now?
But we do see that in American Psycho 2.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, but I understand completely what you're saying. Like, it does seem a little like, I will admit, the first time I watched this movie and there's that scene where like he just goes all out, shoots people, and like blows up the cop cars and then calls his lawyer and admits to everything and then nothing comes of it. I admit, the first time I watched it, I'm like, what the hell was that? But again, as I said, this is like my third time watching it. Upon rewatch, I've kind of just like, once I knew to expect that, and like once I watched the movie, like with all of this in mind, it does start to make a little more sense, where you're just like, okay, it is being intentionally vague. This is my third time watching it. I'm kind of putting whatever, I'm basically thinking what I feel like I can get out of it at this point. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I think it's a little more vague. And because of that, it starts to make a little more sense. So it is something that obviously the first time around, you're just like kind of put off by it, but it does make a little more sense the more times you watch it and the more you start to interpret it the way you want to interpret it.
Right, that makes sense. And I do think this movie is one of those movies that rewards you when you rewatch it more, which is something
totally.
I definitely should do in the future. I also need to watch more movies in general, but that's a different conversation. But
of course,
everything you just said, I agree with, and I do, like I said, I do see this movie like it kind of ends in a loop, like it encourages you to go back and like pick up on certain scenes and then like analyze it like that, like you just said, I still think I still don't like how it changes tone so jarringly, but
sure,
I can see like why they thought that was necessary. I just don't necessarily agree with it.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
I personally think a lot of it is kind of goofy throughout, just because, I mean, maybe that has to do with the fact that like it's kind of been memed now. You know,
Yeah.
like similarly to how like the prequels have been memed and how the Raimi trilogy have been memed.
Yeah.
Like you watch these movies and they say these lines that you've seen a million times in memes, and you're just like, funny line,
Funny meme.
funny meme.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, and I still love the prequels and Raimi trilogy, obviously for different reasons, but
Right.
I still like this movie, even though it has been memed and it's a part of meme culture. I think it still holds water in what it's trying to tackle.
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
what it's trying to get across.
Yeah, and I feel like if this movie was like made today, I think it would be a lot more well received. Because one of the criticisms that they had back when this movie came out was that it was too violent. I thought it was pretty violent, but like it's definitely tame compared to like a lot of TV shows and movies, especially that come out today. Yeah, like The Boys is one. I just saw the Barbarian Barbarian. I guess it was called.
Yeah, it's called Barbarian.
Yeah, Barbarian. I keep on adding the duh. Anyway, I saw that today. That's a little bit more violent than this movie, and that was that's literally one of the best movies of this year. So that's there's another conversation now about the violence of America today or in media.
I
feel like
I'm not one to critique violence in movies. Like if something's incredibly violent, I'm not one to be like, I didn't like it because it was too violent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't even really find this movie that violent. Maybe that's attributed to me just being a sick fuck, but
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I think this movie still holds up. Like I just said, I think if it was made today, this would definitely be one of the best. Like it would be more well received instead of being a cult following like it has been. But this is a fantastic movie. Go ahead. Sorry.
It is aged pretty well, actually. Yeah. Like you're saying, if it was made today, it could have been made today. Like it's that timeless, honestly. Even though it was made in 2000 and it takes place in like the late 80s, like. It's timeless, dude. Like, it holds up really well.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Unfortunately, American Psycho 2 has not. Like, you watch that movie and you're like, this is 2002.
Dude, no. Yeah, so I guess if you want to talk about that now,
we can talk a little bit about it.
Do we rate movies on here? Do we want to rate American Psycho or no?
So, usually to round off the conversations, if you have nothing else to say about American Psycho, the way I kind of round off conversations is I talk about whether or not I'm going to keep it in my collection. So I own it on 4K. It's the uncut version.
Nice.
I watched that too. It looked awesome. I think I watched it on like the normal Blu-ray because I didn't have access to my 4K player, but in any case, it still looked awesome, and it just looked great. I think it's a very cool box. It's a 4K box, obviously, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the movie a lot, so I'm definitely keeping this in my collection for sure.
I will keep it on my HBO Max list because I don't have a physical copy of it. But American Psycho is a great movie. American Psycho 2, not so much.
No. So I watched that on HBO Max because I was just like, I mean, I didn't intend to watch it at first, but then I'm just like, I'm talking about American Psycho on the podcast, and like it's right there. It's like, why not? I'll watch it, see how bad it is. And oh, brother, it was,
dude,
it was simultaneously worse than I was expecting, and also not as bad as I was expecting. Yeah, it's still bad.
Yeah, I think I was more disappointed in how it wasn't like so bad it was good. Like it was just kind of boring and aimless. Like it didn't even try to capitalize, because like movies like this try to capitalize on like a popular movie. So like this is kind of capitalized on the original American Psycho, but it doesn't really do that because like it doesn't really follow that plot line, if that makes sense. Like they have Patrick Bateman in it, quote unquote, but then he gets cut off in like the first like 5 minutes of the movie. So
well, see, that's something that really pissed me off. So, like, as I said when we were talking about American Psycho, like, I'm of the opinion that it's all kind of in his head, and so he's not actually doing all these killings. But then, like, within the first 5 minutes, it's just like, oh, we were with the serial killer, Patrick Bateman. And it's just like, oh, well, great. You've just straight up just made the first movie just not cool anymore. You just made it literal, and now it's lame. It's just like, and then of course, isn't it funny how like every time you see Patrick Bateman in this movie, he's like in this big robe, so
Yeah,
because he probably doesn't have the same physique as Christian Bale.
Oh
He has
God.
the ice mask over his face.
So bad. And then
the ice mask he wore in one scene,
Oh my
but they're
God.
using it to cover up his face because it's not Christian
it's not
Bale.
because he's like, I don't want to be attached to this. What's her face? Meg Griffin from Family
Meg
Guy's
Griffin.
in this. I don't
Yeah.
want to be attached to this. William Shatner, the guy that can't get over the fact that he was Kirk in this one thing. I don't want to be a part of this movie. But yeah, and if this gives you any comfort, I don't know if you did any research on it, but it's not canon. I think the director of the movie said he confirmed that it's not canon. So,
Well, I heard it wasn't originally supposed to be a sequel to American Psycho, which, one, I believe that, because why the fuck would you make a sequel to American Psycho?
Yeah.
But also, it's just like, okay, that makes sense. Because, like, you watch the movie and it's just like, I almost got killed by Patrick Bateman, but then I killed him. And then the rest of the movie, it has nothing to do with Patrick Bateman.
But they
It's
mentioned
just
him like twice, I think, in the regular movie, but it had nothing to do with Patrick Bateman.
Exactly. And it's literally just a stupid slasher movie with Mila Kunis just killing people because she wants to be a teacher's assistant. It's
so
just like,
stupid.
what? It's so stupid.
Dumb. Oh my God.
Which I wouldn't have minded if it was admittedly a dumb B movie, but one, it's connected to American Psycho, so I'm kind of expecting a little more nuance. And two, it's not even funny bad. Like,
funny
I
bad.
know funny bad.
Yeah.
This is not funny
This
bad.
is not funny, but I agree. And like,
Yeah.
I got excited towards the climax because I remembered there was a Family Guy episode where Meg goes psycho on Brian because I think he like kissed her or something like that while he was drunk, and then she goes crazy or something like that. And the climax of the movie was kind of leading up to like that scene because like the final scene in that episode of Family Guy where she starts to go full psycho on Brian. And I thought that was something similar was going to happen with William Shatner's dead body, but like no, she just blows it up in a car crash, and she somehow survives it.
Well, see, that's the funny thing. So, like, the movie tries to paint Mila Kunis as like this super badass serial killer akin to Patrick Bateman, but then it's like, okay, the point of the original American Psycho was that Patrick Bateman was a psychopath. He was crazy. Like, we're not supposed to root for Patrick Bateman, whereas this movie wants you to root for Mila Kunis. It's just like, it's
so
very,
stupid.
very strange.
Now, I'll admit, like, I think the actors did okay for what they were given. I mean, these aren't like high profile actors. Like, no one's gonna be as good as Christian Bale was in in that movie. But you know, it just felt aimless. Like, I don't know why this got made.
It seems like a Scream ripoff, but it's trying to cash in on American Psycho hype.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's aimless.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why it was made. Well, I do know why it was made, money, but
yeah, well, obviously, but
they could have tried a little bit harder
more,
to make it seem a little less scummy.
yeah, that was probably the worst movie I can watch on a plane. I was struggling watching that movie.
You watched it on a plane.
Yeah. I was telling.
You know what? This is a plane movie because it's
it
just
is.
one. You're just like, you know what? I just want something stupid and dumb to watch. So.
Yeah. That was not a good idea. I don't know, but yeah, I'm glad I watched it because I do need to watch more bad movies. So I can't just watch all the good ones. So I gotta,
absolutely 100%. I trust me. I am a bad film connoisseur. It is very look. I absolutely recommend people watch the good stuff. Absolutely, but you need to absolutely watch the bad stuff every once in a while too to really appreciate the good stuff. Right. Absolutely. Right. Like. I mean, I loved American Psycho beforehand, but after watching American Psycho 2, All American Girl, it's like, I fucking love American Psycho even more now.
No,
like,
me too. No, yeah. That's great, yeah. God, that's so bad. That's a bad movie. And that's such a bad tagline or subtitle, All American Girl.
Well, that's the funny thing. So Letterboxd calls it All American Girl, but then you actually watch the movie, and it literally is just called American Psycho 2. So it's like...
So that goes towards your theory of this movie was made as its own thing, and then they attached American Psycho onto it for money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I 100% believe it was not intentionally made as a sequel.
Now that I think about it, I don't think they actually said Patrick Bateman's name in like a scene. It was all voiceover, so I feel like they dubbed over that.
It might have been, I mean, it is just like the first scene where you see like this little girl tied up and Patrick Bateman's like, again, from the side, you don't actually see his face.
See him yet.
So it did seem very like last minute.
Yeah, I agree. But I guess if you don't have any more to say about that, do you want to move on?
No, I will never own this movie ever. It's not going in my collection. It's not a great film, so I would never want it in my collection, and it's not a film that's so bad it's good I would ever want it in my collection.
Yeah,
so
I agree. Same. if I bought that movie or had the opportunity to buy it.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad I watched it on HBO Max, so then I didn't actually have to pay anything. Like it just comes with my subscription.
Right.
So, but it's okay. Let's move on to a movie that didn't get an unnecessary sequel. Pulp Fiction.
Yet.
The other film bro movie you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. I didn't mention, but like I feel like both these movies are very film bro-ish. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they're still good movies, whether or not they have like stigma against them. They're still really great movies. But anyway, Pulp Fiction. What did you think?
Well, this movie I actually saw before when I was in high school. And this is my second time watching it. And this is one of the greatest movies of all time that a lot of people like. Of course, I liked it. Like, I think I probably liked it more when I was younger because I didn't really know how films work as much as I do now. Not to say that my opinion of the movie changed that much, but like, I text you on Discord like, what else can I say about this movie besides like that other people haven't already said? Like, Samuel L. Jackson's cool. Quentin Tarantino. He can write a script, he can direct a movie. This is good. Like, I mean, like I don't know what else to say. Like, you said you wanted to lead it, so I can maybe add on.
So the Pulp Fiction is, I will admit, like I feel like a lot of people do. It's one of those movies where it's in the same ballpark as something like Citizen Kane, where it's heralded as like one of the greatest ever. Like you are born into, we're both born into a world where like it's already had its heyday. Like, we didn't discover this, like we discovered the hype before we saw the movie.
Right.
And I think that is difficult. I think it's a shame that there are movies like that, because it's just like, I want to enjoy a movie more so than I want to enjoy its hype. So it's kind of hard because you are being told like this is like one of the greatest things ever made. I will say though, Pulp Fiction, even though I like it almost as kind of like, I kind of have to like it because it's so good, it's still really good. Yeah, like it's a very, very good film.
Yeah, no.
I definitely like it the more times I watch it. And so I think when I had first rated it on Letterboxd, like years ago when I first got a Letterboxd and I was like watching Pulp Fiction around that time, I was kind of like giving it a 5-star rating just because I'm like, well, it's Pulp Fiction. Like, I kind of have to.
Right.
But like now that I've kind of gotten more comfortable with like how I rate movies, how I view films and stuff like that, like I've kind of gotten more comfortable with how I rate stuff and stuff like that, I feel like, no, I do unironically love this movie. I think it has so much working for it. Like, I mean, there's a reason why there are so many people calling it the greatest movie of all time. Like, movies don't just be called the greatest things of all time over nothing. Like, there's a reason they get to that status. And Pulp Fiction, I mean, it's chock full of just so much. So much like something like Citizen Kane, it's kind of simple in its story because like, what is it about? It's just like about a bunch of just like different perspectives of all these interesting characters as they essentially pull some gangster shit. Like that's like a very vague way of putting it, but that's essentially what it is. And it's obviously told out of order. That's an interesting aspect. Like, people are just like, oh, it's told out of order. Like, you see there's the opening shot where like it's Honey Bunny and I
forgot his name too. Hang on.
Oh fuck, what is Tim Roth's character's name? It's It's like, no. So Amanda Plummer is Honey Bunny.
Right.
Tim Roth is... Oh, fuck. This is embarrassing.
Pumpkin. That's
Pumpkin.
Yeah.
Fuck.
No,
that was
good,
embarrassing.
You're good.
Anyway, yeah, so Honey Bunny and Pumpkin are like talking at the diner, and obviously before they pull out their guns, like you actually see John Travolta walk by them, and because later on during the diner scene at the end, like John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson are at that same diner,
right?
And that's like towards the end of the movie, so
right.
like it's told out of order, and that's really interesting. Like you see, there's that scene where it introduces Butch, Bruce Willis's character, and he's talking to Marcellus Wallace, and that's a scene where like Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta walk into the bar. And that's after the ending scene where so that's after the diner scene.
Right.
But it's early on in the movie. So again, it's like told out of order. Like there's a scene where John Travolta, spoiler alert, dies.
He dies.
And then he comes back because like because that scene happens before he dies.
Right.
But it's just told out of order.
Right.
I am not smart enough to know why he put these out of order the way that he did. I'm sure there's some way of knowing. Maybe he just did it randomly because he was just trying to be stylistic. In any case, I think it still works.
Yeah, no, it does. And another thing that Quentin Tarantino does that's very unconventional is he breaks the show not tell rule, which that's something I wrote down. Because I think one of the biggest thing we learn if you go to film school or if you work in a film is you need the show not tell. You want to ease your audience into this world by showing how it works instead of like telling them like all the everything that the character's thinking and like how this world works and all that stuff. But the way this movie is written is you get to learn everything about these characters by their conversations, and it works because they're interesting conversations. Like they're not just talking about like I feel cold because like the heat is whatever. Like no, they're talking about like the Big Mac and like what's called in France and things like conversations that you would have with like your friend or something like that, and you're engaged into it because like it's like you're talking to your friend. It's like you're listening to a podcast or something like that. And then when the actual plot, and I'm talking about the prelude to Vincent and Marcellus, his wife. I think that's what I'm talking about, where Samuel Jackson and John Travolta are talking, and then when the scene actually starts, where they actually do their job, that kind of gives more weight to what they're doing instead of it just starting at that point, which is that's just so brilliant. Like that's like how you can break the rules or know the rules and break them to make it work for that one instance, and then like how you can have characters that also go through arcs. Like. I think Vincent and Butch's Butch have the biggest arcs that I can remember. I'm sure the other characters do as well. But I like how Butch in particular, he starts off as this character who doesn't really have a lot of respect from like Marcellus or like the body killer or not body killer, the hitman. And his arc is kind of like gain that respect back, like I think Marcellus tells him he's a boxer, Butch is a boxer, and Marcellus tells him to lose that match so he can get more money, and Marcellus is like, nah, fuck that, I'm gonna win, and I'm only gonna win, I'm gonna kill that guy. He didn't know he killed the guy until after their match was over, but he still did it.
Yes.
And then like he obviously he's trying to get out of town because he just pissed off probably the biggest gangster in LA, so he's trying to leave. But then he goes back to get his watch because that was important to him, and he almost gets caught by Vincent, but then he kills him.
Great scene.
That was a great scene. It's also very cool that you just kill off a main character in such a anticlimactic way like that. But it also builds up Butch's character because in the first scene when we see Butch and Vincent interact with each other, Vince kind of like disrespects him. And when he kills him in that next scene when they're together, that's kind of a power move on Vincent because now he kind of like he one-upped Vincent by killing him in such a anticlimactic way, if that makes sense.
Did he he didn't kill Marcellus though, because
no, Vincent. Sorry, because remember? Yeah,
Vincent.
Yeah,
right,
Vincent.
right. Yeah, when he goes back for the watch and he shoots Vincent. Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
okay.
To clarify, there is an interaction between Vincent and Butch where Vincent kind of like, I don't remember what he says, but he kind of like talks to Butch like he has a chip on his shoulder. Like he kind of like disrespects him in kind of a way, and then like the next scene where they're together, he kills him. Butch kills Vincent in a anticlimactic way, and that kind of like, you know, it one-ups Butch's character because he killed Vincent. Am I making sense? I don't think I'm making any sense.
No, you know what? I absolutely agree. There is something there.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not smart enough to know, because I've only seen this movie a handful of times. If I've seen it like a billion times, I probably would be able to figure out, like, I'm sure there's like little details that I'm missing, because like, you know, you can only pick up so much.
Right.
I mean, I noticed this time around, like, there's a reason why there's that scene. So there's the Christopher Walken scene, which is to like kind of set up Butch's watch,
right?
To really set up like why this watch is important, like why he gets so pissed off at his girlfriend for leaving it, why he goes out of his way back to his apartment, risking his life for it, why he ends up in the hillbilly's gun shop and then gets gagged and almost brutally raped, like why he's going through all of this for a watch. It's like because it's a family heirloom and he respects it. Like Christopher Walken even says, like, this is your birthright. It's just like that really connects Bruce Willis's character Butch to this watch. Like that just shows you how important this watch is. And it's just like some people would go through all this trouble for something as minuscule as a watch,
right?
But I mean, it leads to a wacky adventure because he kills Vincent Vega. He goes to his apartment. He ends up in this weird hillbilly shop and gets gagged. It's just would you, had I not known about it through pop culture, I would have never guessed he would have ended up there. Like, they just enter into this random shop, and then the hillbilly with the gun's just like, well. It's just like, you could have never predicted that.
Yeah, and same thing. Like, I love that this movie, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I love, another thing I love about this movie is how unconventional it is. Like, I think I wrote down that this movie feels like an anthology series, like a Black Mirror or like a... whatever, insert anthology series here, because I can't think of anything else. But like,
well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I mean, because I intentionally think this, there's the Simpsons episode 22 Short Films About Springfield, which is an intentional homage to Pulp Fiction.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen
like
that.
there's a scene where the characters of Snake and Chief Wiggum end up in Herman's gun shop, and he holds them hostage by having them in ball gags and stuff like that.
I gotta watch that episode. I need to, one day I'm gonna binge watch all of the Simpsons.
That's the Steamed Hams episode. So.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Yeah, no, that's because that's one of the segments is when it comes back from commercial break. That's when Chalmers goes over to Skinner's house. And he's like, "Well, Seymour, I made it."
See, this is why I'm uncultured. I'm so glad that you let me on this podcast so I can show everyone how uncultured I am. But
yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge Simpsons nut. Like, I know every Simpsons episode from seasons 1 through 8 like the back of my hand. Yeah. So don't worry, I get it. But I'm just
But back to Pulp Fiction. I do love how this movie with its stories is not afraid to like go and like twists and turns that you weren't expecting. Like you gave an example with the hillbillies with and the gold watch short. I also noticed that it did it with the continuation of Vincent and Jules's story. Where they take Phil Lamar's character, which, by the way, Phil Lamar is in the movie and he's acting and he's not like voicing the character. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, no, he's not. I know him for his voice acting, and he's just here. Like, he's not playing Samurai Jack or Hermes from Futurama. He's just there.
He's there, and he's not there for long because he gets killed. No. But like, it's funny because like, it happens so suddenly. Like, you think it's all done, and like they take this guy, and I don't know where we're gonna take him, Phil Lamar's character, but like. Vincent starts talking to him, and all of a sudden he's dead. Like, he absolutely shoots him. And then it takes
you
this
gotta have an
detour.
opinion, man. Bam. It's just
Yeah.
like, whoa.
Whoa. It was like, and that shocked me the first time I watched it. I was like, wow, that can happen. Like they can just kill people off and like it has no consequence, or it has consequence because like they explore those consequences by like going to another person's house.
Because then they go to Jimmy's house and then they got to call up the wolf.
Which is so funny. Like it's like,
oh yeah,
yeah. I just don't like they take this detour and it's like it's so funny, and entertaining. Like how did they think of that? Like that's so it's like such a random thing that like a real life thing to happen, or not a real life thing, but it feels so like it's so unexpected, you know? Like
yeah, exactly.
They make another story around that. It's just so clever, and then it all wraps back up to the first scene when they go to that diner. It's just
which is another part of it where it's like it's like when Sam Jackson was like holding the gun up in the diner and he's just like, look, I've had a really rough morning, and it's just like, yeah, because you went to the guys originally to get the briefcase, then you had to go to Jimmy's house to clean up fucking Phil Lamar's character, the wolf showed up, and now you're here at a restaurant that's being held up for a robbery. It's just like what a crazy sequence of events.
Yeah, like it's just it's like the reasons like that are like little things like that are the reason why this movie is considered to be the greatest of all time, because like no other movie can do that except Pulp Fiction. Now, saying all that, I haven't seen a lot of Quentin Tarantino movies, but I don't think this would be my favorite just because it is so unconventional. It is so all over the place, but it's so it does it so well. Like
yes,
and the acting. Oh my god, the acting's so good. This is, I know for a fact. I can't say it for sure, but I know for a fact this is probably Samuel Jackson's best role. This is probably his most iconic role. He has so many good lines in this. Like he just. His character is so charismatic and cool. Like this is like Samuel. This is the most Samuel L. Jackson movie you probably can have. And I haven't seen a lot of movies. I haven't seen a lot of Samuel L. Jackson movies, but this is probably like when I think of Samuel L. Jackson, I think of this character. And I think
this character too. I think Jules as well.
Yeah. And I also think he has a good arc, kind of like Butch, where it's not like as well. Both of them aren't really as very fleshed out. They're kind of more implied. But I do like how he kind of starts off as this badass hitman, and then he kind of questions his place in the world when he almost gets killed, and then he has this whole epiphany throughout the entire story, and it culminates into the final confrontation with Jules and that Robert with Pumpkin. It's just he just decides like, I'm just gonna walk the earth. Yeah, like it's so good. Like
it is.
Does all this by breaking the rules, by telling a non-conventional story or telling them in an unstructured way, and by breaking the so don't tell rule. Like it's just you can't. I think that what would make this movie like this like unholy like witchcraft movie is if it was all done in one take.
That would be impossible.
Dude, that would be so impossible. But if they could pull it off, that would be like this people would be like having pitchforks at Quentin Tarantino's house, trying to burn him at the stake. Like, that would make it
how
like,
could you do this?
Exactly. Like that's but no, like this movie is great. Like it is. I could say why it's the best movie of all time. I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie. I wouldn't even say it would be my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie when I see the rest of them. But this is definitely like a great movie. Like I think. It speaks for itself, honestly. It's Pulp Fiction. Like, you say that name, it's like, oh, that's a good movie. Like, yeah.
I think I definitely do consider it a favorite. It is definitely in my favorites list on Letterboxd. It is a movie I've given 5 stars.
Yeah.
And I feel like at first it was out of obligation just to be like, oh, it's one of the greatest movies ever. But I do like it a lot, like, watching it again. Like, that scene when Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta are in that apartment and they're, like, interrogating those guys. And just little things, how like when Phil Lamar tries to speak up, tries to say something, and Samuel Jackson goes, I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing. And just like every line he has in that scene is just so quotable. But also just like little things, like I realized this time around, like there's that scene there's that segment where John Travolta takes Uma Thurman out to dinner. And like there's the scene where he's at Eric Stoltz's place. Because he's at the drug dealer's place, and it's just like, oh, you could just view it as like, oh, he's just stopping by at this drug dealer's place, and it's a great scene because like the way they interact, how like John Travolta's just like, some dickless piece of shit keyed my car, and the drug dealer's like, what? That's fucked up, man. Like, they're just having like a conversation.
Yeah.
But that's a great way to set up later in the story when like Uma Thurman discovers like the German cocaine that he has.
Right.
She snorts it and starts ODing, and so then he has to take her to Eric Stoltz's place, and that's great. Like you set up the drugs and you set up the place, so then later on in the story you can go back to that place and it all like kind of connects to each other.
Yeah,
like it's not just a random scene. Like there's a reason that it's there, and I like that.
Yeah, like this is just every second of this movie is like is important. It will tie back to something else that you need to remember later. And I love movies like that. Like it's just,
absolutely.
Yeah, like this is just a great movie.
Yeah.
And I probably like it more after talking about it. Like it's just realizing how good it actually was. But what were we about to say?
That's the power of movie podcasts, baby.
Yeah.
You get to talk it out.
Yeah, I need to do more.
Absolutely. So I do own a Pulp Fiction on a collector's edition DVD. So
ooh, fancy.
This is not one I own on Blu-ray or 4K. It probably should be, but the reason I own this on DVD is because the collector's edition kicks ass, man. So I don't know if you remember like DVD collections back in the day.
Yeah, kind of.
And actually, so on an earlier episode of the podcast, I talked about Memento with Mordo, and that was also a DVD that I own of Memento. That's a collector's edition, and it's like designed to be like this portfolio for the main character, Leonard Shelby. And like it's just like this really cool, intricately detailed DVD casing.
Right.
And it's the same thing for Pulp Fiction. So it's just like 2-disc collector's edition. It has like this pamphlet with all this information about the movie. You get all these special features upon special features. They even have a Jack Rabbit Slim's menu in this collector's edition. So
that's really cool.
Obviously the diner that they go to in the movie, they have, I'm not kidding. They have a menu. They have hamburgers listed here, sandwiches, salads, beverages, desserts. They got
that's
everything
really cool.
Here. It's like you didn't have to do this.
Honestly.
Like you didn't have to do this.
No.
Like, who includes a menu for a fake restaurant for a movie? But like, I'm glad they did because it's really cool.
Yeah.
So
I'm surprised because like everything you said, like I've seen. I don't know if you've seen like unboxing of like collectors edition for video games and like that, but those are things that you would see in like collector's editions of video games. There's a YouTuber that I don't really watch, but I've seen like thumbnails for his videos before where he unboxes collector editions of various video games. He did one for Gotham Knights, which I don't know if you heard, but that game isn't the greatest.
I'm not much of a gamer, but I have heard it's not great. And well, great. I don't have to play it. I wasn't gonna play it anyway.
But like in the story, you know, Batman's dead, and his
I'm interested already.
His proteges trying to take up the mantle of Batman, and the people that supposedly killed Batman and Bruce Wayne, or whatever, is the Court of Owls. And in the collector's edition that he unboxed, you actually get a pamphlet of. Oh, actually, no. You get a newspaper article of like the report of Bruce Wayne and Batman being dead, and the Court of Owls in it. I don't know why I mentioned the Court of Owls, but it's that newspaper article that's similar to that mini where they didn't have to do it, especially for a game like Gotham Knights, which is not that great. And it even has like spoilers in the newspaper article, so like it's really something you need to read after you beat the game. But like
that's interesting.
Yeah, like no, like that's cool that movies did that back in the day, and like even I don't know when that collector's edition was made, but like the fact that they made that, like I'm guessing maybe 90s, early 2000s.
Probably like early to mid 2000s. Honestly, because that's when DVDs were still like popular enough, and Blu-rays hadn't really taken over, and Blu-rays still haven't taken over because they still make DVDs,
right?
Because even though DVDs were popular in the 2000s, like, so they were so popular that they overtook the VHS market, but Blu-rays were expected to overtake the DVDs, but they never did. Now, the frustrating thing with Blu-rays is you do get collector's editions, but, and friend of the pod, William, has talked about this, like, the reason a lot of 4Ks and Blu-rays don't have as interesting, like, special features or like box sets is because the movies are much bigger files on these discs. Like the reason they're like, because they're much higher quality on Blu-rays, and especially 4K. Like the quality is so much better, but it's a lot bigger, so you don't have as much room for like these special editions and special features. Crazy. Which, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, that's why I started this podcast, is because I'm trying to make sense of my movie collection. But you know what? I think this is such an impressive DVD. And honestly, even watching the DVD, it looks great. Like, I'm not much of a snob when it comes to quality, when it comes to discs. So I think it still looks awesome on, DVD quality. So
that's good.
I'm 100% keeping this Pulp Fiction Collector's Edition DVD.
Yeah. And I'm keeping it on my HBO Max list, and if it's still on Netflix, I'll keep it on my Netflix. I think it's off Netflix. That's actually the first place I watched it. Was on Netflix, and then
that's probably where I watched it. One of the first times too was Netflix, which it's not on anymore.
Yeah, it's not. Okay, but out of curiosity, where did you find this collector's edition of the DVD?
Oh, sometimes I remember where I got things, and sometimes I don't. I'm gonna take an educated guess and say I think I got it at this specific store in New York City. Oh. So I've been to this place a couple of times. It's this place called Book Off, and it's near Times Square in New York City. So shout out to them. Although I will say I did go back a couple months ago to them, and it just wasn't as impressive.
That's
they do have a wide selection, but I mean they have like a lot of stuff there. But I'm more of a fan of my local shops. But still, I did find this Pulp Fiction DVD. I think I found it there like years and years ago. And I think this was the first time I actually watched it on this DVD.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm glad I did because, I mean, now I know for sure I'm keeping this because it's freaking awesome.
Yeah. Pulp Fiction is a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. We probably spoiled the heck out of it, but like you still watch it. Like
I think I was still spoiled for it before I watched it, but I still enjoyed it. It's one of those movies that even though I was spoiled before watching it, I still thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. I agree. I think I've seen other movies where I was spoiled for. I can't think of them now, but like I still enjoyed it watching it instead of like if that makes sense. Anyway, I when I don't have a script, I kind of like I don't make sense, but yeah,
that's okay. Yeah. This is the podcast format. Yeah, it's a lot of it is just ums and ahs. I've noticed, but it's a hell of a lot easier to edit. I'll say that.
I bet it is. Yeah.
So, all right, that's American Psycho, Pulp Fiction, and American Psycho 2 for like 5 minutes.
American Psycho 2, baby. Don't watch it. Yeah, dude. Don't make it a meme. Yeah.
No,
don't make it a meme.
No, definitely not.
It's not
all right, Perry, shout out your stuff. Plug your stuff. Where can people find you?
That's a great question. So YouTube, Agent P3. Twitch is not Twitch. Twitter is kind of weird right now. You can still follow me there. Same thing. I think it's at. Hang on, let me make sure before I say it. It is at. No, that's not my Twitter. Hang on. It's at Agent P_3. Which if you go to my YouTube channel, you can look at it. And I also stream on Twitch, that should be just Agent P_3 or something like that. I don't know. Agent P3. You'll find me, and I'll get how to put the links in there. I also have a second channel that I also stream on for YouTube. I think it's called Agent P3 Plus. So I haven't really posted that much yet, but I will be streaming there soon, and I also have some other cool stuff. So look out for that. But I think that's all I had to plug. Thank you, Hal, for having me on. I really appreciate talking to you. Like this is fun. Yeah,
dude, this was awesome. I loved having you on. You could always come back on anytime. I say that to all my guests.
Oh no, for sure.
I probably haven't, but you know what? If I never said that to you, any guests out there, I apologize. You can come on anytime. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm waiting for James to come back for the 5th time.
Yeah, no, totally. No, this was awesome. I really appreciated having to talk about these movies. I'm glad I was able to talk about them in this episode, and now I know for sure I'm definitely keeping both of them, so that's important.
Well, I'm glad I helped you make this decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to all of you out there listening. I really appreciate the listeners, the followers, the subs, what have you. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some videotapes to return.
Videotapes.